Welcome to Career Tools. This is Sarah.
And I'm Mark.
Today's podcast, How to Answer Questions About Career History, Part 2 of 2.
As always, folks, our content has been crafted by humans and is now certified by the Proudly Human Corporation. The questions this cast answers are, do I have to tell the truth about my career history? How do I structure my answer about my career history? And can I make my career history sound better?
If you want answers to these questions and more, keep listening. We put a lot into every episode. Research, experience, and years of trial and error distilled into practical, actionable guidance. And while we hope you're listening to every single one, we know that's not always realistic. That's why our licensees get the full show notes for every episode delivered straight to their inbox. Key takeaways, action items, all of it, ready to read, reference, or forward to their team whenever they need it. If you're not a licensee yet, this is just one of the many reasons to become one. Visit us at manager-tools.com/memberships to learn more today.
So, next item. Above all, please, folks, be honest, okay? And hopefully, you know, if you're new to Manager Tools, I just want to tell you, Manager Tools was founded by two West Pointers, my business partner and Mike. And we agreed to an honor code, which says a cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. This is a very serious thing. It comes from a military requirement that if you're in the field, you can't tell someone that you're where you're supposed to be if you're not, because they will make tactical decisions in the field based on where you tell them you are, which might in fact be deleterious to their unit or their command. And it is an ironclad rule, so much so that today, Mike and I graduated over 40 years ago. If I were to tell a lie and it was to become public among my classmates, none of them would ever speak to me again, ever. Mike probably wouldn't ever speak to me again, and he's arguably my best and longest friend other than maybe David Hoyk. So when we say decide on an answer, we don't mean make one up. It is true. We want to be clear about this. Being honest might lose you interviews or jobs in the future. Okay? You might say something that's very honest and you're interviewing with an unprepared or unprofessional or unknowledgeable or unwise interviewer who doesn't realize that an answer which is truthful, which shows you in a negative light, actually has power for them. It shows a side that you're willing to say things truthfully, even if they hurt you. There's a thing in law. Most people don't know this. In the courtroom, in the Western courtroom system, so Europe and the US and Canada and Mexico, there's this phrase called statement against interest. Now, everyone assumes when somebody is testifying, particularly somebody who's accused, that they are saying things to make themselves look good. If you are on the stand and you say something that makes you look bad, it's called a statement against interest. Like, yes, I was very mad at her. That is actually considered an indication more of your truthfulness than it is of the negative of your state of mind. Statements against interest are given extra weight in legal proceedings, and that is also true in interviewing. So you don't need to be afraid of saying, actually, I messed up a major presentation and my boss had enough and he fired me on the spot. Got to tell you, there are a lot of CEOs who in their career as VPs or EVPs or SVPs or general managers did the exact same thing. They choose A, and in fact, it found out later that B was the right answer, and they went off in the wrong direction and they didn't meet their number, and so they got fired. And they said, I chose A. My boss really thought it should be B, but he let me do it, and A didn't get us where we needed to go, and I wasn't doing my job because I didn't meet my number, and so I got fired. And that kind of tone of saying, I chose A, should have been B, I was wrong, I know it, and I was okay with being fired. The point here is being ethical is a critical tenet of a professional career. And folks, you're never going to hear us tell you a way to be dishonest that will help you be successful. We have a rule here. I think I mentioned it earlier. We do not recommend ways to do things that we do not recommend you do. And it is far better to be ethical and lose than it is to be unethical and win. That might not be popular right now, but I can assure you, when your colleagues know you're ethical, even when it hurts, that will be one of those ties that binds you even more closely to them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I mean, speaking of those people that might give you guidance that isn't exactly in line with Manager Tools guidance, folks, there are plenty of recommendations out there about how that you should spin your answer or bend the truth a little bit or manipulate or do something that isn't just telling the plain truth. And anybody that tells you that you should try and hide the truth in order to answer the question a different way is telling you something that is going to cause you to fail, and they are not working. They are not behaving in your best interests. It is stupid, honestly, for you to try and manipulate your interviewer at this moment for multiple reasons, one of which is that honesty and ethical behavior are non-negotiable behaviors in the professional world. And folks, we would rather we and you didn't get a job, a promotion, a raise, whatever it may be, than lie to get that thing.
Yeah. And I know this sounds old-fashioned, and I know the world tells you that you should have a story and you should fake people out with it. But I can tell you, folks, I know people like that. I'm 65 years old. I've seen a lot, and I can tell you, those people get hollowed out very, very quickly. Lies as well are found out. And when they are, your entire world is compromised. We might only have bent the truth, okay, a little bit on why we left that last role. But when it is found out, every other thing we have said or done is held in suspicion. Okay? Folks, if you don't get a job because you're truthful, now I'm not saying truthful in terms of I don't like you. I'm not talking about stupid truthful. I'm talking about honest truthful, where you admit I made a mistake there or I made a mistake here or whatever. But if you are truthful, losing an offer is an okay outcome. Winning an offer, when you've been untruthful, to Sarah's point, how long do you want to spend wondering what story you told that you now have to continue telling? It feels like you're just sacrificing a part of your soul every time you have to keep up that lie. So if you are that person who's willing to shade the truth to your benefit, you can't be trusted. And not just by our new manager or our new team or our new company. Industries are small enough that the world will get around about you. And frankly, with the internet, who knows who might find out? Folks, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I mean, there are examples, aren't there, Mark? I'm probably going to get this wrong and I probably shouldn't say it. I feel like there was someone at Walmart who was in a really key position and it came out that something on their resume wasn't quite right. Maybe it was they had a credential that on their resume that they actually didn't have, something like that. And it was a trivial thing. When it came out, it was literally like, this person didn't have this really unimportant thing that was on their resume.
A degree. It was a degree.
Who cares? A degree, exactly. And it's like, but they were really successful in the job. Why should it matter? And folks, that's why it matters. Not because that person needed, I'm making this up because I don't know the details anymore. Because they didn't have that real Bachelor of Arts degree that they should have had. That's not the point. The point is, if you were going to tell a lie in that way to that organization, at what point can they assume you're going to draw the line at your lying? Like, it's not about the degree or not. It's about the lie.
You mentioned the Walmart story. I'll tell another one. There's a Berkshire Hathaway story. Warren Buffett just recently retired officially at the end of last year, a few months ago. And the guy who was most likely to run Berkshire Hathaway was a guy named David Sokol. I think the name of his company was American Energy or American Utilities. He was the most impressive CEO in the entire portfolio of Berkshire Hathaway. And despite a stellar career and a reputation for honesty and so on, in preparing for buying another company, which is something that Berkshire Hathaway does to add to the value of their overall portfolio, David Sokol, who was generally believed to be Warren Buffett's successor, this is 10 years ago, who, by the way, wrote a book called Pleased But Not Satisfied that is an outstanding book. David Sokol bought some shares, a significant number, but not a controlling number of shares of a company that he intended to talk to Berkshire Hathaway about acquiring. Now, the moment Berkshire Hathaway acquires a company, their stocks go way up. He later admitted, and he got fired for that, because Warren Buffett, every year in January, he probably won't do it anymore because he's retired now, but every year in January, Warren Buffett wrote a one-page letter to every one of his business CEOs, business leaders, the CEOs who run all of the companies that they own, like Geico or Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. There's many, many others. See's Candies, I think, is one. I mean, they have a very interesting sort of portfolio of companies. They own a furniture store in Omaha, Nebraska. But they buy based on the quality of management. Well, the quality of management is basically including the ethics of that management. So Sokol had worked for him a long time. It built up a great record. And Warren Buffett said, no, and he got fired. He was out. Now, he's a very wealthy man, but he has told many times he regrets enormously. Well, what happens is every January, Warren Buffett used to write a letter to his CEOs. And the letter was very short. And it said, I encourage you to do the best you possibly can. I want you to achieve impressive numbers. I want you to meet your goals and so on, so that we can have the capital to continue investing in the American and the world economy. But what I can tell you is, at no time should you ever do anything to damage our reputation. We have plenty of cash. In the letter, he says, we have plenty of cash. We can help you for a couple of years if you have bad years, if you're struggling economically, if you make a bad decision about which country to invest in or which product or policy to do or whatever. But I will not help you if you do anything to damage the reputation of Berkshire Hathaway. If you damage our reputation, there's nothing we can do about it. And reputations take years to build and minutes to destroy. He says, if you would not have any action you take appear on the front page of the New York Times the next morning, you should not do it. And unfortunately, Mr. Sokol did that, and his career was over. And I would argue, I mean, he's a very successful guy. I would argue that among the people who Warren Buffett knows, nobody would ever hire that guy, because he made a self-dealing decision, even though he probably didn't intend that. But that's the standard of ethics. It's not that you didn't intend it. The standard is, what is the perception of your behavior?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, folks. So above all, be honest. One, because it's professional. It's unprofessional to lie. Two, because lies are found out. You're going to be found out. But also three, and probably most importantly, in terms of plugs for honesty, is it's just not necessary.
It's not necessary. You don't need to work. You're trying to cover up for something that we don't care about. Hey, what'd you shoot on the golf course? And you start to say a number. Nobody cares.
Exactly. Folks, these negative circumstances that you've got in your background have happened to everyone at Manager Tools. We all have great jobs now. Mark's been fired. Maggie left work to care for her autistic sons. I made some terrible career choices in my 20s. All the best CEOs in the world have been fired, and we learned brilliant lessons from those circumstances. We all followed our own advice. We all got hired again. We did not need to lie to do it, and you don't need to lie either.
One of the 5 greatest executives I've ever known in my life, Jamie Dimon, the chairman and CEO of JP Morgan Chase, the biggest bank in the world, I was coaching him when he got fired. Sandy Weil of Travelers, I can't remember the name of the parent company, called him in one day. And I would argue Sandy Weil, who I knew, fired him because Jamie was too good and he perceived him as being a threat to himself.
Fired's fired.
Yeah. And he got fired. And this is 20 years ago now. And now he's the chairman and CEO of the biggest bank in the world. And not only that, if Jamie Dimon says X and X is negative about the economy, the stock market goes down. Just Google Jamie Dimon Wall Street Journal, and you'll find 200 articles about what he thinks about things.
Jamie bounced back. You will too.
All right. Next point. Your answer should be short and include no blame. The ideal answer is short. This part of your interview should be no more than a 1-minute diversion. We don't want to turn this into a big deal, an explication of what actually happened and all the details. Shorter answers brook less questions and are easier to remember.
Perfect. So I'm going to give some examples, folks, of what it might sound like. You could answer by saying, I was fired. I made a mistake that the company felt it could not live with, and that was the necessary conclusion. I've learned a lot from the situation, and I'm confident it will not happen again.
You could say, I left by mutual agreement. My boss and I didn't agree on the management of the department, and we decided it was better if I left. I'm confident that it was the right decision. I'm looking forward to making a positive contribution in a new environment.
You could say, I had health issues. I decided to leave my company in order to concentrate on regaining my health, which I'm happy to say I now have. There are no openings in my old company, and I'm looking for a new company where I can be as happy contributing as I was there.
Or, I left my company 6 months ago and thought that this other company would provide the career advancement I was looking for. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. You notice I don't say, unfortunately, they misled me. I'm not going to throw shade on anybody. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And though I regret the decision in hindsight, I learned a lot from it, I have to tell you. I'm eager to find a company where the contribution I can make will be a better fit for me and for whomever hires me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And folks, in those examples, there's two things that we want to note. One, to Mark's point a moment earlier, there's no blame. There's no anyone saying my manager was an idiot or the company was terribly
unethical.
run. Exactly.
Yeah.
They made me do something illegal. There's no pleas for sympathy, just stating simple facts. Whatever your feelings are about it, whoever was to blame, all of those things may be true, folks, but those things stay outside of your interview room. And honestly, in this answer, that's one of the biggest mistakes that candidates make.
That is ego and self-doubt. You don't have to, folks, you don't have to do that. In fact, Sarah never did. You did. When we had a 7.5-hour interview.
Yeah, that was interview one, folks. I had more interviews after that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But that was the only one I did, and we already knew we were going to hire you after. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like it's no blaming. It's like, yep, I did that. Not a good idea. That was me.
Blaming someone gives the impression to an interviewer that you're not in control of your own life. It makes it seem that other forces are buffeting you like the wind and you have no choice, like a sailboat or something. It makes interviewers feel uncomfortable. I've been there. It makes me uncomfortable. If you'll blame your ex-manager, will you blame me, your boss, or others for your mistakes if we employ you? It's not a good vibe, guys.
Yeah. And folks, also dragging out that old painful story, it turns this into a really big deal. It makes it a huge issue, this conversation that we're talking about. And we're really, really trying hard to avoid that. Remember, what we want is for this to be a single minus point to your interview. Not a big can of worms that you opened up and dumped on the table. We want the interviewer to get their answer and move on past, not dig in.
I would argue, though, when we say it's a single minus point in your interview, because that's the way you're thinking as an interviewee. As an interviewer, I consider it a plus. This person was candid and forthright. They didn't blame, and they talked about the future. You can turn a negative into a positive, but you can't do it by misleading us, by schmoozing us, by shading us. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, you'll notice in all those answers, our answers addressed the future. There is a sense of moving on to all those answers. The message is, yes, it happened. It's over. I'm ready for the future. Using that formula helps the interviewer, and it's happened to me. And folks, I've interviewed, I'm going to say 10,000 people, maybe more because of my work in the White House twice, interviewing hundreds and hundreds of people, 10,000 people. If you do that, use that formula with me, I will consider it a fresh, candid, this is a person whose ego doesn't get in the way of the truth. It might be subtle in this case, but I think of it as very important.
Manager Tools has taken the purely human vow, and we mean it. That means every piece of advice, every podcast episode, and every recommendation is purely AI free. Just decades of proven human-crafted management expertise trusted by professionals in over 180 countries. In a world where AI is everywhere, we believe human management is irreplaceable. Visit us at manager-tools.com to learn more. Okay, so that's what we're going to say. Now let's talk about how we're going to say it with a matter-of-fact delivery. And folks, the way we deliver our answer is as important as what we say when we deliver our answer. This might be a negative circumstance, but again, we want to make it sound like it's something that we're dealing with as professional, and it's really not a big deal in our world.
You know what they say about dogs, right? If you show that you're afraid, they're more likely to attack. It's the same for interviewers. If they get the sense there's a concern there's some smoldering embers that might turn into a fire, they're going to dig. They're going to put some bellows on that fire and see if there's actually a 3-alarm fire there that they don't know about. What we want to do is sound unashamed, unburdened, and almost unbothered. Now, I'm not suggesting when we say unbothered, cavalier about it. We don't want to act like, oh, this is nothing. Oh, it's nothing. You don't need to worry about that, blah, blah, blah. You're going to address it professionally and forthrightly, and you're going to get credit for being a candid, ethical person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we want to sound matter of fact with a little positive emotion in our voice. And again, it's like I'm really like layering it on here. To do this, folks, you got to practice. You can't sound matter of fact with a little bit of positive emotion about this thing that you've planned out unless you practice.
Let's go a step further, folks. If you're not willing to practice an answer, if you have a blip, a glitch, a sidestep in your career, and you're wondering about it, and you're listening to this cast, and kudos for you for listening, not because it's us, but because you're trying to get better, and good on you, okay? If you're not willing to practice, please stop listening now. We don't have the magical phrase, which every Instagram post seems to suggest they have for you. We don't have a magical phrase you can use. We have a framework.
I gave out
and
all
a
my
concept.
silver bullet. Folks, I've got none left.
Yeah. Everybody wants a silver bullet. The problem with that is there are no werewolves in interviewing, so silver bullets aren't going to do you any good. So practice, and let's go further. When you get the question, and in your practice, smile. Welcome the question in your mind. You're now about to get to put this thing to bed.
Yes, exactly. Tuck it away.
Here's an opportunity to answer the question, get it off the table, move on to your positive contribution. If it's early in the interview, that's even better. You know, people think it's later in the interview. They're really liking me by the later part of the interview. And then they ask that. They're like, oh, that's no problem. They're sweeping under the rug. You want it early, and you handle it professionally, forthrightly, ethically, with a positive focus on the future. By the time the recruiter gets done 40 minutes later, it won't be that big a deal. It really won't. It's going to be over in a minute.
Exactly. And even if it is late, if the question's asked near the end of the interview, you've already had so much time to impress your interviewer. They're already, at this point, unlikely to be listening to you. Part of interviewer psychology is confirmation bias. I mean, by the time the interviewer gets to the end of the interview, they've already decided whether or not they're going to like you. And folks, if they like you, they are only actually listening for items that further confirm their impression.
This is literally the entire business model of Instagram and TikTok, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to give you more of what you want.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, if you've amazed them at the beginning, they're already won. They're already on your side. If you can answer it well, you're going to be surprised at how often and how quickly the issue is just brushed to the side and it's just a non-event because they already had a decision in their mind and they don't feel like they need to dig any further. They got this.
Yeah. So I'm going to add, since folks, if you're listening to this, we're the only company in the world that does this. Okay. The podcasts are free for a reason. Because you may not be able to pay to license our work. We'd like you to be a licensee to help us spread the word of Manager Tools worldwide, because our motto is every manager effective, every professional productive. And we spend a lot of money spreading the word all over the world as much as we can to help every manager, whether they can afford to pay us a dime or not. But you know what? If you're listening and you want help and you want a little bit more than what you're hearing here but you buy into the idea, send us a typed out answer and we'll give you comments. And if you want, record yourself and send us the recording. Don't send us a 25-minute recording. I don't think the email system can handle that.
That also breaks the short answer paradigm.
That's a very good point. Thank you. Well, somebody might give a 1-minute answer and then give us 24 minutes of clarification about the factors.
24 different versions.
Frankly, yes, exactly. We want to help you and we don't want your money. Okay. We want you to be successful. I know it's old fashioned. I get it. People are like, I've been told for the last 20 years of my life since we've been giving away career tools and manager tools for free. Well, that's a dumb business model. Yeah, I don't think about business models first here. Sarah doesn't think. Mike, my business partner, we don't think about business models. We think our job is to help people. That's our job. It's to help you. Gosh darn it. And we think if we help enough people, there will be enough business there that we can sustain our economic growth. And after having been downloaded over 250 million times, we think we're doing pretty well on it. By the way, we also want to hear from you. Okay. Become a licensee if you can, but even if you're not, write into customer service at manager-tools.com and tell us your story. Or start by, I'd like some help. I got fired and I've crafted an answer. I've been practicing it. Here it is here's in writing. And if it's okay, I want to record it and then I want to send it to you. Yes, we'll do that. And we may never meet you and you may never pay us. And that's okay because you'll keep listening and you'll become better and you'll make the world a better place. And if you're making the world a better place, we win because we're part of the world too. Now, yes, we would like you to contribute to our business model, but that's not important, particularly if you just got laid off or you just got fired. I just read an article about a couple of, I think 3 young guys who have an AI startup and their goal was to be $1 billion company.
That's a big goal, friend.
I know, but it takes the heart on me. I don't want to be $1 billion company. I want to help people. And if helping people makes me become $1 billion company, that's great. But I'm not going to give up on helping people. I just refuse to do it. I don't want to be somebody who needs help and there's nobody there to help.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an former Army officer from many, many years ago, but there is a Marine slogan, and I love the Marines. I had 2 Marines in my Special Forces team. And one of the Marine slogan is, they have 2 that I really like. One is, nobody wants to fight, but somebody damn well better know how, meaning we'll do it. The other thing the Marines say is, freedom isn't free, but the U.S. Marines will pay your share. Well, you know what? Learning isn't free, but manager tools, career tools, and executive tools will pay your share. We want to help you be more effective. And I just want people to not stumble over stuff that they shouldn't have to stumble over. It's a friction in the world that you're listening right now and you have a glitch in your background. We can help you get over it and we can help you be productive again. And it just seems like a waste for you not to be productive.
Agreed. All right. Next piece of our guidance is adding in follow-up information if necessary. And folks, this does not go against our recommendation that you ought to keep your answers short, but if you find that you're always getting asked as a follow-up for the same information, we would recommend that you embed that follow-up into your delivery. So, for example, we're going to take the first example that I gave, and I'm going to embed into it some follow-up information. So, I was fired. I made a mistake which the company did not feel it could live with, and that was a necessary conclusion. I've learned a lot from the situation, and I'm confident it will not happen again.
It's a really good answer. I'm sorry. That's just a really good answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, but it may be that every person you deliver this answer to subsequently asks, what was the mistake? Okay. Now you'll be surprised. They're actually unlikely to, because that answer is so lovely and so self-respectful that you are responsible for yourself and you're taking accountability for actions. And human beings actually don't like probing into other people's pain. Whereas if you're vague about it and you suggest that it was just, oh, there were some challenges and I decided to move on. If you say that, they're going to drill you. Well, what were the challenges? What are you saying? Blah, 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 blah. So we would then add in the additional information in order to give a fuller answer. which answers all the interviewer's questions. For example,
Okay. I was fired. I made a mistake in accounting, which caused the company to have to restate its earnings. The board did not feel I could live with that mistake, and firing was the necessary conclusion. I've learned a lot from the situation, and I'm confident it will not happen again. So, folks, you can see I added that it was a mistake in accounting that caused the company to have to restate its earnings. That way, again, it just eliminates many people having to follow up and ask what the mistake was, because you already said the answer, and it's, again, quicker, easier, honest way of just putting the issue to bed.
Sarah, chime in if you agree. It's been our experience that everybody believes that their layoff or their firing is unique. And so don't think that we're trying to make light of your situation. If your situation, if you think it's unique, first of all, it's not. We've heard it and seen it all in the last, in my case, 35 years, and Sarah's nearly 20 years. So if you're wondering, if you don't think that your answer can fit into that because it needs to be different or special or whatever, again, send us an email, customerservice@manager-tools.com, and we will help.
Yeah, exactly.
We genuinely want to help. Okay. Our last item is to stop worrying about it. Now, a lot of people are going to be listening and thinking that seems counterintuitive, right? You've just been fired. It's all you can think about. You're worried about your resume. You're worried about interviewing. Frankly, at least in my experience, Sarah, tell me if you disagree. What they're worried about is paying their mortgage, paying their rent.
Buying groceries. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're worried about the resume, the interviewing, you're paying the rent, and telling people the circumstances at all, you're afraid, and we're telling you not to worry about it.
Exactly. And folks, any circumstance you come up against in your career is just what happened. To be a little bit self-help here, where you are is where you're meant to be.
Yes.
You cannot change where you are. It doesn't matter how many millions of times you go over it in your head, reliving every tragic moment of it. What is done is done. All you can do now is deal with your situation and move on. It's the only choice you've got.
Yeah. You're not the first.
Uh-huh.
Sarah and I beat you to that as well as hundreds of thousands of others before. Yeah, Jamie, exactly. Yeah. So many of us have been there before. CEOs are regularly fired. The average tenure of a CEO is 2.5 years. We know people who have been in prison, had addictions, had terrible marriages, children whose lives went off the rails and they had to step in and bring them back to the light, who have made themselves terrible mistakes, who then went on to successful careers.
Yeah, exactly, folks. All of those things, no matter how bad they sound to you, can be overcome. But in order to get an interviewer to believe it, you have to believe it first yourself.
Oh, that's the line of the cast.
Yeah. If you don't believe it, if you don't think it could be overcome, you're going to have a really hard time.
This reminds me of something I learned 40 years ago. A boss I had, not a good boss, but she said something that I thought was very powerful. Most people say, I'll believe it when I see it. And her thought was, no. You'll see it when you believe it. So get it into your head. Folks, it doesn't do us any good to deal in false hope with you. If we were giving out guidance that didn't work, people would not listen. And we've got 500,000, 1 million listeners every month.
Absolutely.
So believe me, we're being candid with you about what works and what doesn't work. How do we know? Because we have experience over the last 30 plus years. So practice your answers. As Jimmy Buffett said, breathe in, breathe out, move on. What has happened to you has happened. In fact, Sarah, if you'll allow me, I'm going to go on a tangent. My daughter, Kate, and my son, Travis, were both at Tulane when Hurricane Katrina hit. And I was asked by President Bush to go down there and check on New Orleans and so on. But Jimmy Buffett, who's one of my favorite musicians, rest in peace, Jimmy, he wrote a song called Breathe In, Breathe Out, Move On. And the chorus of it says this: I bought a cheap watch from the crazy man floating down Canal Street in New Orleans, which was flooded. Again, he bought a watch. I bought a cheap watch from a crazy man floating down canal. It doesn't have numbers or moving hands. It always just says now. Now, you might be thinking that I was had, but this watch is never wrong. When you have troubles, the warranty says, breathe in, breathe out, move on. You can't change yesterday, folks. You don't have to own it deeply, but you have to forgive yourself. You have to be willing to say, I'm human. I fail. Literally, the entire human condition is failure after failure after failure. And we fail into better and better and better circumstances. I've been saying this for 20 years at Manager Tools. Humankind today is smarter, richer, taller, safer, wealthier, longer lived than ever before in human history. And it will continue being that way while we continue to screw things up. Yes, you screwed up. If you think it's questionable whether or not you screwed up, admit you screwed up, own it, and then own your answer. And I promise you, it will become a non-issue in your interview.
Yeah. If you're not ready to get over it, folks, I mean, we're not the folks to help you with that, unfortunately. Tell your friends, though. I mean, tell people that are your supporters. We know you don't want to share some of these things that have happened. Some of these things that have happened are awful. You might be the person who did the wrong thing. It's not cool, but tell them. If not for you, just for us.
Yeah.
And you are going to be, we assure you, surprised at how supportive and non-judgmental and sympathetic the people around you are.
Yeah. So roughly in this cast, we have a summary here, but I'll tell a story. A friend of mine volunteered at my church back in Texas years ago. This is 20 years ago, and was responsible for counting the collection. He was a volunteer, a layperson. One day, it was discovered by the church. In fact, it was discovered by a friend of mine, Pastor Bobby, that he'd been taking money from the collection to pay for outings for his children, which he could not afford from his normal work salary. It was a terrible thing to have done, to be stealing from the church. I mean, it just sounds horrible, right? He was ashamed. He dreaded going back to church. But he wanted to apologize publicly. And so he did. And he was just decimated. He was groveling, and he was afraid, and he was alone. He was in the desert. And the people in the church, interesting. We were horrified that he had been struggling all this time, and we didn't know, and he didn't ask for help, in part because maybe he didn't think we would give it. And then there was an outpouring of sympathy and people asking, what can we do for you now? And we made him whole. We forgave him and we got on with it. What do we need to do for you? And then his family prospered.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And some of the people listening to this might think that's an example of religious folks who are just nicer.
Good point.
I mean,
good
right?
point. Okay, fine.
And employers probably feel differently than folks at your church. But folks, every one of those people in that church has a job. And when they're not at church, which is most of the time, they are out there and they're being someone else's colleagues and they're being someone else's coworkers, and they are forgiving other people and being sympathetic to those people all the time. So don't just assume that the people around you wouldn't.
In fact, in our effective executive conferences, we tell our executives when they come together in cohorts, Sarah, we say to them, don't not bring a problem to the group. We meet for 6 months after the effective executive conference as a way to add value. Don't not bring problems to the group because you're afraid that you'll be seen as somebody who has problems. And the way we say it is, please don't deny your friends and colleagues the chance to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do that. We want to help. Human beings are naturally helpful if we can to our colleagues and our friends. And the way I will end this before I let you sum up, Sarah, is please, folks, start by telling your friends, then tell everyone you know, and then move on from that failure, from that glitch, from that bubble. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be ethical.
Exactly. All right. So to wrap it all up, folks, No matter what your career history looks like, you don't have to be afraid of it.
Agreed.
The key is to stop avoiding the question and start owning the answer. That means deciding deliberately how you're going to address those gaps, pivots, or unconventional choices you might have made, and then practicing that answer until you can deliver it with confidence. When you've reflected on your path, acknowledged the reality of it, and practiced articulating it calmly, you come across as self-aware rather than defensive.
Yes.
And employers aren't looking for perfect. They're just looking for someone who knows themselves and can communicate who they are with confidence.
I got to tell you, Sarah, I got choked up a couple of times during this cast.
Me too. It was a good one. It was a really good one.
Folks, I hope it comes across. We care about you. There are people you don't even know that you've never seen who care about you. If you're listening, we care about you and what's happened to you. And if we can help, we want to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us, folks. We hope this helped you. Now help us help others and tell your friends. And of course, follow, rate, and review our podcast. And remember, 5 stars only, please.